Passion's Best Games Rant. By the way, I decided to start removing the numbers from this series of videos, so if you're wondering why I'm not dropping a number in this vid, it's for that reason. Kind of unimportant, really, unnecessary to number them. I feel like that's just going to add confusion and people are going to think that I'm like actually ranking these games on some kind of like listing, but that's not the point. Doesn't matter what order I'm bringing these up is the point I'm trying to say. So anyway, Vanquish. Vanquish is another one of my all-time favorite games, and the funny thing about Vanquish is that, you know, it was made by Platinum, one of my favorite game studios, and it draws a lot of influence, obviously. Being a cover-based shooter with like these Space Marine characters, it draws a lot of influence from Gears of War. And the funny thing about that is that I've never really been a Gears of War fan. I played the first one back in like, you know, when it was new, 2007, whatever, on Xbox 360. I played the original. I remember being very kind of bored with it most of the time because it was kind of slow and plotting, and that's just not my kind of shooter. I kind of prefer faster paced run and gun games. You know, and Gears was always just kind of, it was a little too slow for me. I wasn't like super crazy about its aesthetics or its visual style either. I remember it just being kind of a little overrated in my book, but that was super popular. It spawned a bunch of sequels and people loved it, but it obviously was a big influence on Vanquish, which, you know, kind of its whole starting point is kind of what Gears of War did as a cover-based shooter, you know, but it takes that and speeds it up like 10 times over, makes it really fast. You have these awesome rocket boots that you can zoom around the battlefield, and you can perform these crazy flips and moves, all while shooting and dodging and avoiding all the big robots that are everywhere, and it's just complete utter chaos. Now, of course, not everybody likes bullet hell shooters, but I fucking love bullet hell shooters. I think that's become like my favorite shooter genre overall is bullet hell, because I'm all about games that are about fast reflexes and, you know, very twitchy, like really you know, games that demand that strict hand-eye coordination where it's like, you know, you're in the moment, you're not like stopping to think for too long. It's not so much a strategy thing, or in the case of some shooters where, you know, you're moving very slowly and it's very methodical. I like those kinds of high-speed action games. So looking back on it, I actually would go a step farther and say that not only is Vanquish one of the, you know, one of my favorite video games, period, as far as action games go, but it's also probably one of the best shooters I've ever played, period. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think back on it, the more I think about other shooters I've played over the years, including FPS. You know, this is, because Vanquish is a third-person shooter, of course, but FPS, third-person, doesn't matter. Just shooters in general, I think Vanquish is my favorite one, just in terms of its mechanics and gameplay. I mean, the story is nothing to write home about. It's campy as fuck. It's mostly deliberate. I don't know what the deal is with its weird ending. It does have a strange ending that feels like it's trying to be some kind of political thing, but almost like it's approaching Metal Gear territory. But I mean, if there's any kind of weird subtext in the game's plot, it's completely pointless because most of the plot is just B-movie nonsense, which is fine because as an action game, the plot is mostly just throwaway. It's mostly just there to frame, you know, with a brilliantly paced, awesome action game it is. And it did catch a lot of flack for being super short, which I think is funny because I feel like a game that high octane, a game that's that, like, intense and constantly cranked up to 11. Like from the very first mission in that game, when you first get to that space station, the action is cranked up to 11. So it's like, I don't know why people complained about the length. I don't know why the 6 or 7 hour campaign was such a point of contention for people, because it's, if the game were any longer, it would definitely overstay its welcome. Like it, when you have an action game that's operating at that level, I feel like it would become pretty exhausting if it tried to stretch itself out beyond that point. Plus, the action and the gameplay is super addicting and super. It's so novel that I feel like it's the type of game that you want to come back to repeatedly and play over and over, get better at, and there's just so much fun to be had with that style of action, with how over the top its gameplay is. Whereas something like Gears of War is much more of a straight line, and it's like, okay, get behind this cover now, go to that cover. Every battle is just kind of like connect the dots, shoot this guy, then shoot that guy. Vanquish, there's like a joy to its gameplay. There's almost a there's almost like a desire to show off while you're playing, because that's the kind of gameplay it is. It's a real game in that sense. And I feel that way about a lot of Platinum's stuff. I feel like they tap into that arcade sense of joy, where it's like you want to get better at playing it just to show off all the cool stuff you can do, because it's just so fun to show it off. It's that kind of game, and I don't think I've ever had that with any other shooter of any kind, especially one with big, gravelly Space Marine dudes. The visuals are great. I love its mechanical aesthetic. I love the robots. I love the way they explode and the sparks everywhere. And the screen of this game is just constantly filled with explosive chaos. And somehow it is manageable. Like it never feels too overwhelming, because you have so many options at your disposal for gameplay. Like you have so much freedom to quickly zip around and get behind cover and jump out of cover, and I love it. I love that game. I would kill for a remaster of it on PlayStation 4. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. I know it's on Steam now, which is strange. I can't imagine playing that game on a PC, but I guess, the hardcore PC gamers can play anything on their rigs if they, so I'm sure it has controller support. But anyway, I freaking love that game. So that's probably gonna be like, from now on until I play a better shooter, I'm gonna consider that one of the best shooters I've ever played, because it really is. I don't think we've had anything of this current generation, to me, that is as much fun to play as Vanquish. So it's a shame that it really didn't do well at the time. It didn't sell well. It didn't market well. And I think it was just seen as just another cover shooter by a lot of people who didn't give it the chance. Platinum wasn't quite as big then, I guess, as they are now. But it's strange, because I know Bayonetta was already a big deal at that time, so who knows. But anyway, unfortunately for now, the only way you can play it is on PS3 or Steam. And we need a remaster, like, soon. Anyway, on to the next vid. Ciao.